Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for another 5 minutes for everyone to find their way here. So we'll get started shortly.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right. Welcome to St. Monica here in person. My name is Christine Garrity. I'm the Director of Spiritual Care and Engagement. And welcome to all of you who are joining us online tonight. We are blessed by your presence because the only way we go forward through uncertain times is when we are together. And that is what we are doing tonight. We are going to just be spending some time together, talking, learning a little bit more about what may be going on inside us, in our community, learning some techniques to help us as we go forward on this. And as I said, we're in a time of great uncertainty, and there is no better prayer in our tradition to help us go forward in uncertainty than the one that was given to us by the Trappist Cistercian monk Thomas Merton. So let us begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. So we've got a few of us that are going to be talking tonight up here, and we're going to be having you talk where you are too. I am honored to be here with my two co-presenters. We have John Osborne, who is an expert in breath and meditation work with an organization called The Art of Living, and he is going to be with you in just a moment. And we have Michael DiPaolo, who is a clinical psychologist, also connected with St. Monica, who specializes in areas of meditation, of bringing wholeness together in areas of grief. And so we are here tonight to be with you. And what we'd love to do is just to have you introduce yourself to the person sitting next to you, or the person behind you, or the person in front of you. So just say a quick hello as we are here today. Hello, Carol. It's so good to see you. So thank you for saying hello to each other, and we're going to continue to do some more of that through the evening. At this point, I'm going to put you in the capable hands of John Osborne, who is going to get us centered and ready for the rest of our evening. John.
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. Nice to be together during these times. Yes? It's nice to see you all. So we're going to talk a little bit about the breath a little bit later on tonight, but I'd like to get everybody kind of comfortable and in the present moment with just one form of breathing now. You've got to be willing to go along with me. How many people are feeling a little adventuresome so that they'd like to try something new, a form of breathing? Willing to do that? Okay. So put your hand, your right hand, we're going to teach you something some of you may know if you've already practiced yoga. It's called full yogic breath. Hand over the navel. And I'd like you to take a normal breath in and out. Now breathe in and see if in breathing in you can lift your hand. See if you put a little attention on the navel and you breathe in through the nose. And you feel the belly rise. And then exhale and feel it fall. Inhale, feel it rise, just maybe an inch, half an inch. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. How many people can already feel, when they put their attention on their breath, things to start to settle down just a little bit inside, yeah? So that's the first part of the yogic breath. The second, and I'm going to have to change hands here. Your right hand is still on your navel, and now your left hand is going to be on your chest. And so what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in and feel the navel rise, and we're going to breathe in a little bit more and feel the chest expand. If I had a stand, I'd be able to do both hands at the same time. I'll show you without the mic. First, just a normal breath in. we did at the beginning. Breathe in, feel the navel rise just a little bit. You have a little bit more breath. See, allow your breath to move up into the chest. And feel it expand. Exhale. Chest compresses slightly. And comes down in the navel. Navel relaxes. Again, breathe in. Navel rises first. Chest expands. Eyes can be closed if you're comfortable. Exhale, chest comes down a little. Navel relaxes. Third time. Inhale. Hand on the navel rises. Chest expands. Exhale. Chest compresses. Navel comes down. How many people were able to manage that just a little bit? Yeah? Feels comfortable? Okay, so that's the second part of full yogic breath. And the third part, if we're going to become Olympian breathers, is to see if after the bottom part of down here by the navel expands and then the chest, just a little bit can reach our throats. We actually have part of the lungs that comes right up under here, under our throat. Lungs have 3 lobes to them. Okay, so I'll demonstrate first. Normal breath in and out. Inhale. Okay. You sure? Inhale. Navel comes up. A little bit more inhale. Chest expands. And then see if just a little bit of the breath touches the throat. Hold for a moment. Exhale. Comes down through the throat. Chest contracts. Navel comes down. We'll do this 3 times. Inhale, navel comes up, and chest expands, and a little bit of the breath touches the throat. Exhale, comes down through the throat. Chest contracts, navel comes down. Again, breathe in, navel expands, rises, chest expands, touches the throat. Exhale. One last time. Inhale. Navel rises. Chest expands. Touches the throat. Hold for just a moment. Exhale. Comes down from the throat, chest compresses slightly, navel comes down. And relax. How many people felt just a little more stillness, a little more centeredness from the breath? We're going to learn more about that a little bit later on tonight. Okay? And now I think I'm going to turn this back over to Christine. Is that right?
Thank you, John. So you'll get a lot more of John later, but that was a little teaser. You can see how powerful even those few moments of breathing in a different way can be. So as I was praying about our time together tonight, what came to me was just this overwhelming sense of what's happening. Where are we? Yeah. How did we get here? What's going on? But it was very much the where are we? And as I was sitting when praying about it, it struck me that there are a couple of different stories in our Christian tradition that might help us as we start to sit with and figure out how to make sense of where we are and what it means for going forward and when that might happen. So some images that I thought about, and if you can think of other ones, I would love to hear them. But I thought about the Israelites in the desert. There they are, they're in the middle of the desert with Moses. Something horrible has happened. They have lost their homes. They don't know where their future is going. And they're stuck. And a lot of times they get really, really frustrated. And it's taking a lot longer than they wanted. And so there's that feeling of kind of moving in circles, and where am I going with this? So the Israelites are one possible story that we can connect with. Another possible story that I thought about was, there's that story in the New Testament where Jesus is on the lake, and he's in a boat with the disciples, and there is a horrible storm going on. And the storm is rocking the boat all over the place, and Jesus is asleep. It seems like he is completely not tuned into what's going on, and all the disciples want is for him to wake up and to take care of him. And eventually he does, but they have to go through all of that angst of that rocking and of that trying to figure, we're completely out of control. And that may be how you might be feeling or have been feeling, or people that you know have been feeling. Another image is that of the upper room after the crucifixion, when Jesus has died and the apostles are terrified and they don't know what to do. And they're terrified that if they go out, something bad is going to happen. They're terrified if they stay in, something bad is going to happen. They feel stuck, but they feel trapped, and they don't know what to do. And then finally, another image of this kind of place is Holy Saturday. In our world right now, Holy Saturday is usually a very busy day. We are running around getting ready for the Easter Vigil if we happen to be in ministry. If we're having our family over, we may be making Easter dinner. There may be Easter egg hunts. There may be a whole multitude of things. But as Father Kevin O'Brien, who was with us last week, reminded us, that on that first Holy Saturday, nothing was happening. The only thing that was happening is that people were sitting with the darkness and with the sadness. And it's so hard to do that because we want it to go away. But one of these things about these difficult moments that we know from all of these stories that I just shared is that that's not the end point. That's a stopping point on the road to something else. The Israelites got to Israel. It took them a long time, but they got there. On the boat, Jesus woke up and he calmed the storm. In the upper room, a week after, Jesus appeared to them in that very place and brought a sense of intense, immense peace. And that time on Holy Saturday eventually resolved in the resurrection and resolved in new life and new hope. And so I think what our scripture tells us is there are going to be these times, these dark times, what we can call liminal places or liminal moments that we may not want to be, but that we are for a while. And so what do we do with them? How do we deal with them? And I think the thing that the story and actually research, psychological research shows us is that as human beings, we are built to be able to move through this and to come back to new life on the other end. It's part of our resilience. When we look at some theories around grief, and Dr. DePaulo is going to talk more about grief a little bit later tonight, there's one set of theories that's really helpful. It's a good roadmap. Because oftentimes when we're grieving, we don't know where we want it to end and we don't know what's going to end. But there are 4 big things to think about, and I'm happy to talk with you more about them afterwards, or we can have coffee together, or whatever would be helpful. But when we go through grief, we first have to acknowledge that something really bad has happened, that we have had a loss. And that in the beginning of something like this, especially something like the fires, sometimes takes a while because you were really busy trying to figure out just where you were going to live. And sometimes after the details get taken, some of those details move away, then other things start to set in. But first we have to acknowledge the loss. The next thing that happens, and it is no fun, we have to experience the pain of the loss. And that pain can show up in a bunch of different ways that we'll talk about in just a minute. But it's an important part of the process. The next part of the roadmap is how do we make a new life out of all of this? How do we take our first steps forward? How do we make sense? How do we pick things up and say, okay, this is what it's going to be going forward? And the 4th step on that grief roadmap, and it sometimes can take a while to get there, is how do I integrate all of this into my life? How do I integrate it into my emotional life? How do I integrate it into my spiritual life so that I can see the good of what was and trust the good of what will be? And that fits in incredibly well with our spirituality as well. It's that whole idea that I talked about with Easter. where we have the crucifixion. Holy Saturday is that time of waiting, of that non-action, and then moving into the resurrection of hope. So that roadmap fits there. So the psychology matches the spirituality, and when we have something converge like that, it tells us, yeah, it works. It's what it's supposed to be. And we see it even playing out in how groups of human beings deal with difficult times and disasters. And Sam's going to put up a graphic for us, a diagram in a second, which I don't know if you've seen, but he's hopefully going to put it up on that beautiful screen. And what this is there we go, communal process and recovery. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to go over to that. I'm going to feel a little like Vanna White on Wheel of Fortune, so bear with me. And I have copies of this for those of you here tonight. So you can see we have something that looks like a really crazy roller coaster ride from Magic Mountain. And what we have here is what research has shown about a people's and groups' emotional highs and lows when we go through extremely difficult times. So at the far side, on the far left of the screen, you'll see what it says is pre-disaster. So things are kind of at a normal place, but they're starting to get a little bit jumpy because we know something is going on. We're hearing the reports, we're checking, we're getting notifications on our phones. We've heard that the winds were going to be whipping up. So there is this unsettling that has started to happen. And then it happens. That's the impact, and it goes down a little bit. But then, all of a sudden, the energy and the spirit of people zoom up. Doesn't mean that we're happy, but it means that we're empowered. And this is when we go up to that heroic part where we had people who are helping their neighbors, when we had all of the first responders and the firefighters doing what they could, when we had people at the Red Cross who were talking with each other. And that's what's called the honeymoon period. And if you remember during COVID where we clapped for all of the healthcare workers as they came out towards the beginning, that's part of the heroic period. So that's what we do as human beings when we deal with difficult things. But then what happens is it gets really hard, and we get disillusioned, and we get frustrated. And so you can see the graph coming down. And I don't show this to you to make you sad or to make you scared. I show it to you so that you can know that whatever you're feeling and whatever the community is feeling is normal. It's how we deal with this. But the sign of this graph shows that eventually it gets better. And so this is, in its own way, even though it's a tough road, it shows that it is going to get better. And eventually what ends up happening is we go through bumpy times, and then it comes back. We start to heal through all of the work that you are doing and will be doing, and it will bring us back up to a more regular place of where we were. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that, I think, has been a helpful way for me to think about what's happening both inside of us and also in the community. And so, like I said before, one of the first things that needs to be done on this path to healing and recovery is acknowledging the losses. And I'm just curious, if you think about it, I could come up with a whole list of losses, but I know you can too. And I'm just wondering if you could shout out some of the things that you're recognizing that you don't have in the same way anymore. Obviously, a lot of people don't have their homes, but what else? People? Neighbors. Your mother. That's, yeah. Memories in the homes that you lost. One of the things that struck me was also too thinking about like when a college kid like brings somebody home, they can't show them the school that they went to necessarily. So it's also the loss of that future sharing. Yes. Feeling of safety, absolutely, that sense of safety. They are lost. It's like we're all kind of in exile floating around. Yes. Your dog, your job, yes, our work. Our work. Carol. Familiarity. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was writing things down, I was just like, we've lost the things we didn't even realize we knew were familiar. Or, or that we paid it, that we were part of our life every day, and it's not until they're gone that you don't realize they're there anymore. So much. Okay. Anything else that strikes people? Yes. Your church. Corpus Christi. Yep. It's a big thing. It's a big thing. And I really appreciate the fact that you shared those things and that you're here and you're letting it. And these are things that we can't fix in the way that we want to, but it's part of what we're going through, and we're trusting that God is somehow going to do something with all that we're doing. So that first step is looking at the losses. And one of the things that I heard a lot of people mention were people. And that's what the research shows, that one of the things that's so important to try to keep together in some way or recreate in some way is this idea of communality. Not just community, not just the fact that we all lived in a particular geographic area, but the connections, that social fabric that you talked about, the people. The person who you would pass by and you didn't even pay attention to, but they were always at that bus stop when you drive by at 8:20. So it's that communality. So one of the things that we're trying to do, at least in part here at St. Monica, is to provide some spaces where people can be together and still knit some of that combined social fabric together. But it's going to be something that's going to be needed to do very intentionally because people are spread out. In terms of reactions to loss and stress, there are a lot of different ways that stress affects us. It can affect our behavior, it can affect our thinking, it can affect our bodies, and it can affect our spirituality. And as we think about that, one of the things with spirituality is this can be a period of time where either people can be really angry at God or really turn to God. And I don't know where you are, but I would be curious just to sort of think about that. Where is God fitting in? What questions do you have for God as you are going through this? And for each of those different areas, in terms of, there are opportunities to talk about this, and we'll talk about some of those support resources in a little bit. But as we go through this, one of the most important things that we can each do is to make sure that we're supporting ourselves, and doing that by connecting with each other and by connecting with God. Sometimes what some of the research shows is that focusing on one thing at a time, so focusing on what you can do in times of frustration can be helpful. We're going to do some prayer and meditation a little bit tonight. Another thing that can be helpful and that you all have is you are experienced in dealing with difficult situations. And so how have you dealt with something in the past before? How can you take those skills that you already have and use that for going forward? So I invite you just to think about that. Okay. And one of the other things, I've got a list of support materials that we'll share with you tonight before you leave. One of the things that we've heard a lot from the community is about how do we support our kids and our young people. And there's an organization called the National Child Traumatic Stress Network that if you have young people in your lives, please let me know. They've got some really wonderful materials on how to help our kids that are matched to different developmental ages. I'm just curious, if you think about how things are you're seeing in some of your friends or family, what are sort of some of the signs of stress that people are seeing? How is anybody having trouble with sleeping? Okay. The research shows that basically everybody is going to have trouble with sleeping. So keep an eye on it. If it really keeps persisting, talk to your doctors, because there are different techniques that can be used, and sleep is utterly important at this time. So sleeping is a big thing. Appetite changes can show up. Fuzzy thinking. Is anybody's brain not working as well as it usually does? Yeah. This is again, kind of how we're wired, but being aware of this and knowing it can give us a sense of grace and peace that you are normal in dealing with what you're dealing with. It is totally normal to have that. But if you're finding that some of those things are really interfering with your life, let me know. We can connect you with a variety of different resources and professional support that can be of help. But I think, and we can also connect you with some of our spiritual supports. One of the things that we're going to be starting in a couple of weeks are wildfire support groups, where people are going to have the chance to come, and it's going to be online because everybody is all over the place. But to be able to talk with each other about what their experience has been like, it's going to be done within the context of faith. And so I've got some more information about that for you as we close our evening. But at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Mike DiPaolo, who is going to talk with us some more about grief and about some steps forward.
Thank you, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, I'm going to speak a little bit about grief, because really everything she's been describing some more we could put under that heading of grief. And the term grief, I think this will resonate, comes from the Latin term gravare. And if you think gravitas, right, what it means is a heaviness, right? And I imagine we can all get that sense of a heaviness, right, to make something heavy. And this, when we go through grief, it's important to know that it's a normal reaction. Right? It's a normal reaction. We all experience it differently, but it's that normal reaction to a loss. And a simple way maybe I think about it sometimes is that, grief is basically a reaction to a change we didn't want, right? Some change happened that we didn't want, and we're experiencing the loss of that, and we go through it. And many times there can be, that experience of trauma going through it. There's the trauma of what happened, but there's really the impact of it is really not just what happened, but it's what was done to you did to you, right? What was done to you did to you. All the impact of what you've gone through. And as Chris showed us with that diagram, it's important for us to remember that as we're going through this, there is a point at which it starts to begin to move up. Everyone's probably heard the term PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but what we don't often hear about is something called PTSG, which is post-traumatic growth. That in going through this process, right, that hope that we have as an Easter people, a people of hope, have this trust that there is some hope at the end. There is growth that will actually happen as we come through this. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to mention 3 points about grief. After that, John's going to come back up, mention a few things, and then we're going to do a guided meditation sort of jointly with you. So 3 points about grief. Number 1, there's no one right or wrong way to grieve. Everyone has different parts that are activated by grief. How many of you remember who heard the name Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? Right? Talked about the stages of grief, right? And when that first came out, right, that book, and it was like, oh, there's these stages you go through, right? And there was an order to them, right? It was denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And what we've kind of subsequently learned, and even what she has stated, is that we don't just go through this nice orderly stage, right? It'd be nice if it was, right? We could predict it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And all of those experiences can come in any order, and not just those, right? Gosh, she left out anxiety, didn't she? Right? I think she left out disillusionment, which I saw up there on that graph. She left out agitation. She left out addictions, right? So there's so many different ways and things we react to. And one way I want you to think about it is what I was saying is that we have many different parts of us that are activated. And important to remember that when you're going through grief, that these different parts are parts of you. So it's not all of you, per se. It might feel like you're consumed by it, but it's recognized that, oh, there's a part of me feeling angry and a part of me feeling sad. So I can have these different experiences within me. And it's important that we honor all of them. That's the key point with this first point, is to honor your experience, honor each other's experience. Some people's experience you may align with, others you may not like the way they're going through it. It's their experience of grief, right? And that's what they're going through. Paul reminded us in Corinthians around these many parts I talk about. He said the parts of the body that seem to be the weaker are the ones we can't do without. The parts we think are less important, we treat with special honor. And I say that just to remind us that sometimes we go through something and it feels okay, I feel sad, it feels okay, but then there's other parts, like I'm angry and I don't like feeling angry, right? Or I'm doing this and I don't like it. And our invitation there, as Paul is saying, is that we want to treat them all with honor. All of these parts of us, we treat with special honor. Some people go through grief, right? Very emotional, very expressive. Others on the other end, right? It's just, I'm holding it together and I'm doing, and every day I just do. That's what I do. We might call that person like the practical griever, right? I'm just focusing on the tasks at hand, what I'm going through. Others may just close off, become numb, become immobilized by it. Again, all different experiences, no right, no wrong. Even the person who says, I'm fine, that's a grief reaction. With everything else that's going around, right? I'm fine, you might look and say, that's not quite normal, is it? It's a grief reaction, just as real as any of the others. So again, point one, there's no one way to grieve. We all have different parts activated by grief. So point number two is that grief gets complicated when those different parts of us become polarized with one another. In essence, that notion of having an inner conflict. How many of you, especially when this was first happening, you couldn't turn off the news. You were just glued to it, right, for hours, right? And yet, maybe how many of you had other parts that were like, oh my God, I need to just turn it off, right? Stop watching it. Right? And we have these parts in us. Do I keep watching it? Do I not keep watching it? Or I know people I spoke with, some would say, when this happened, I just wanted to get out. And others who were like, I don't want to move. Different experiences. And can have, those inner conflicts within us when those different experiences do occur. One of the more common ones is that sense of I have to hold it all together, right? Because I'm dealing with insurance companies, I'm dealing with finding a place to live, I'm dealing with finding a school, I'm dealing with this, all of those things. And so I have to hold it all together to get that done. And yet this other part of me is saying, I'm exhausted. You got to slow down. I need something. Right? I'm feeling all these feelings that are coming up. But as the feelings are coming up, that other part's saying, no, just hold it together. Right? And so we can get sort of stuck in that space. And important to remember when we see that is we don't have to pick and choose which one is right and wrong. That our invitation here is going to be to welcome all of them and see that they each have a very valid perspective and they're each doing something that's very important for us. And when we get to know them in that way, when we can validate them in that way, it's going to help them begin to ease a bit. Another way that one comes up is through survival guilt. Right? Survivor guilt. That sense of someone else's experience is worse than mine. And again, in that polarization, it's okay that you can have gratitude for some things while empathizing for the loss of other things. And both can be present at once. Having gratitude doesn't mean that I'm not being empathic or having compassion for someone going through something worse. I can have both of those things be present. And then the third point to make around grief is that when we grieve one thing, we grieve everything. When we grieve one thing, we grieve everything. When we go through a loss, it activates the memories, the psychological reactions of all the other losses we've been through in our lives. So the current grief activates the old grief. The way we respond to this loss it's probably going to be similar to the way we responded to other losses, right? It's just become the way we've adapted in our system. And it could be very specific. I've spoken with folks who said as a child, they lost a home. And it's reminding them of that, right? So it's very specific and very easy to see. But it can be just general too. It doesn't have to be specific, right? It could be any experience of loss that you've gone through. It's important to remember, as William Faulkner said, the past is never dead. In fact, it isn't even the past, right? Because it is still alive there within us. And all of us, as children, we learned how to survive. We put on these suits of armor that became protector parts of us that helped us to adapt and get along with whatever was going on around us. And the way we learn to adapt then just sort of becomes the prototype for the way we adapt as we grow older. So again, important to remember that those are all adaptive things we learned. They're not like these bad defense mechanisms, but they're healthy adaptive things we learned that we're just going to carry through as we go forward. So I'm going to share a little story. It's about a woman named Gina. And Gina came in to see me the week after everything had happened. And she just came in, and Gina lived in an area that wasn't evacuated, but it was sort of one of those be ready to evacuate areas. And she's married, she has a few kids. And she came in, she's saying, oh, it's so much, it's just so much. She goes, but I held it together. And she said that like, it's a badge of honor. I held it together to get through it, right? And so already in her first two sentences, she's saying, it's so much, and I held it together. I could already feel some of that tension she was feeling inside. And she had these two sons. And so she's home in the afternoon. And the one son named Kyle comes in, and Kyle's all anxious, and he says, Jake's in his bedroom packing. Do we have to leave? And she was able to remain calm, and she's like, no, baby, we don't have to leave. We're okay. We're okay right now. And she goes, but Jake's in the room. She's like, okay, go ask Jake to come on in, right? So he goes over and he gets Jake, and then Jake comes in. And Jake comes in, and Jake's kind of, very just stoic almost, not so emotional about it. And he's just saying, yeah, I'm packing. And he was like 8 or 9 years old. He's like, I'm packing all my important things. So I've got all my Pokemon cards. That's the first thing he got together, right? Because those were important to him, right? His little Pokemon cards. And so he's packing these cards, and mom's like, well, it's okay, we don't have to go. And she's like, you always told me be prepared. And so I'm being prepared. And that was his way he was adapting. So her two sons, right? Totally different ways of experiencing this. And she was able to be with them and reassure each one. But what was interesting is as Gina's recounting this story, I'm saying, well, what's happening in your body right now? And she goes, I'm feeling this tightness in my chest. Again, which was the holding it all in that she was doing. So it was a lot of hard work. Acknowledging that hard work, really validating that she's doing hard work to hold it all together. And then what she said to me was very interesting. She said, what's hurt the most in this is that I didn't get a call from my mother as this was going on. And her mother lived out of state. And so later she called her mom. And her mom's response is, well, I don't watch TV. I'm just too busy and I don't have time. It wasn't, oh my gosh, what happened? How are you? How are the kids? It was, I don't watch TV. I'm too busy and I don't have time. And what Gina then said was, it was always like that with her. Too busy and didn't have time. And she goes, I think that's why I have to hold it all together all the time. That's why I have to hold it all together. Because I just always had to do it on my own. She was always too busy and didn't have time. And so several minutes later, as we're talking more about it, and we're talking more about how she's holding it together and doing what's with the kids. She says, as this was happening and what happened with her mom, the memory and how that was really bothering her, she goes, well, I didn't share that with my husband either. She goes, I was just too busy and I didn't have time. And she just kept going. And I said, she kept going. I'm like, oh, can you pause for a moment? I'm like, do you know what you just said? And she had to catch herself, right? That you are too busy and didn't have time. And in that moment, it just hit her like that aha experience, right, that we all have sometimes. And she sort of put the two and two together about, oh, wow, it's so automatic that I just keep doing this. I don't have time. I have to hold it together. I have to keep going. And in that moment, though, she could also really realize that. And there's moments where I need to slow down and attend to what's happening within. Because when I don't, boy, it really builds up inside. And has this weight and this burden and this anxiety that really just drives me. So what we run from pursues us. What we face transforms us. So this is why this grief that we go through, all parts of it, it needs to be witnessed from that core self within us. Right? We have to be able to turn towards this, be with it, and in fact, invite love and compassion for all these different parts that we experience. That core self within us is Imago Dei. Right? We're creating this image and likeness of God. It's the essence of who we are, and that place within where we connect with the divine. And it's a hard place to access, especially when we're going through a lot in our lives. But there's things we can do to try to connect back in with it and bring some of that healing. And so what I'm going to invite John to come back up now. And he's going to share a few more words with us about the breath work. And then he's going to lead us into a little bit of that. And it'll be a 2-part meditation we'll be doing together.
Looking forward to it. So great to be with you guys tonight. I'm really happy to be here. And happy to be here, especially at St. Monica's. It's great that we have this place to come together, isn't it? We've all been going through a lot. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the breath and how a little attention on the breath might help us get through some of these difficult moments. And I'll teach you one breathing technique that you can take home with you, and then we'll move on into a guided meditation. Sound like a plan? So, one way that breath can help us in a very simple way, it can give us a little more energy. Where is it that we get our energy from anyway? We get it from food, right? Right, she's pointing her finger up. Yeah, we get it from our Creator, for sure. But most people also get it from food, anything that puts us in a positive state of mind. I always feel more energized after Mass on Sunday morning, right? So anything that puts us in a positive state of mind, food. How long can we live without food? Do you know? Anybody have any idea? How long? 3 or 4 days? A couple of weeks, depending on how well upholstered we are. How long can we live without water? 3 or 4 days. How long can we live without breath? Not very long, right? So breath is a really important source of energy for us. It's also very important for our health. Has anybody found themselves with all the stress they're going through also having sort of minor health challenges? A little bit here and there, right? First service project I ever did for this nonprofit that I work with, The Art of Living, was with AIDS patients in West Hollywood. And it was before there were medications for AIDS, so these people were really struggling. And I started out with 5 students, and the 5 became 25, and the 25 became 100, because they discovered that some of these breathing techniques also raise their strength of their immune system, and they live longer. So breath, if you put a little attention on it, can also help you be healthy, especially during these stressful times. But there's also an inner kind of not very well thought about connection of breath with our mind, our body, and our emotions. Does anybody remember when you were first watching the TV? If you were watching the TV, I happened to be on the East Coast, but I was near an evacuation zone, and every time I saw the fire leap up or expand, I noticed my breath went. Oh no, it's getting closer to my house. Have you ever noticed that? Or have you ever been in a room when somebody's really angry, but they're trying not to show it, and they're sitting there going, ever notice that? So there's this connection between our breath and our emotions and the state of our mind. Most of us have seen it in one particular way, noticing a change in breathing. But what would happen if we could learn certain forms of breathing that would bring us to a quiet, centered place, no matter what was going on in our outer life? Would that be useful? Yeah. So breath is very important that way. And also, as parishioners or people of God, we have to look at the scriptures, and we see that breath just kind of moves through the scriptures and is a metaphor for bringing us closer to God. You know, God breathed on Adam and Eve and brought them alive, right? And when Jesus wanted to give his disciples the gifts at Pentecost, he breathed on them. So there's an important connection with breath and our own spirit. How many people have had times in their life at church or other times when they felt completely connected to the deepest part of themselves and to God and to everyone around them? Yeah, have we all had those experiences? How many would like to have more of those experiences, especially during these times, right? It's like you go to a certain place and there's a door and you want that door to open because you got into that place, but you don't remember how you got in there, or it was a moment of grace. So your breath can help you open that door. That's why we've been teaching, part of a big team, these breathing techniques at St. Monica's for 20 years, and we really have Monsignor to thank for opening that door. It's because people discover when they learn these breathing techniques, it's a great introduction into prayer. I've also, for the last 15 years, dealt with traumatized people, specifically Iraqi and Afghani vets who've come back from the war with post-traumatic stress. And I'm sure some people here are already experiencing some post-traumatic stress. How many people are having racing thoughts or unwanted thoughts where they go back again and again to the situation, right? Or moments of anxiety, they don't know where the anxiety comes from, or sleeplessness. It's like a situation traumatizes us so much that it kind of makes an imprint. It's like a computer, and the computer shuts down to protect us from further harm. But what do? We want to go back and reboot that computer again and again and again, and those thoughts come back. So breath not only gives us energy, makes us healthier, can help manage, bring us back, no matter what is going on in our emotions, to a calm, centered place, but it also brings us back into the present moment. How many people find themselves thinking again and again about maybe the home you used to have or different things in the past? And where you really need to be is in the present moment, right? You need to be in the present moment with a clear mind. How many people are overwhelmed with thoughts about insurance or mortgage or medical or where am I going to live in the future? How am I going to manage this? You got to be in the present moment and be able to deal with it one at a time. So breath can help you do that. So the first thing we did tonight is we learned a little bit about what's called full yogic breath, right? I should tell you that if you practice some of these breathing techniques, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I did, along with the University of Wisconsin and Stanford University, a study about some of these breathing techniques with post-traumatic stress. And when people have gone through a program of 7 days, their symptoms of post-traumatic stress went down 40%. And interestingly enough, when they tested those people 6 months later and a year later, the symptoms were still down. So if you learn a bit about the breath, it's not just some hippy-dippy hot tub thing, it's new age thing or something. It's something that can give you some really tangible results over time. Now, some of the breathing techniques that I teach take a couple of days to learn. We have seminars here, retreats from time to time. We just had one. We're going to have another one later in the year. But I'll teach you one tonight that you can take home with you and use on your own when things get a little tough. Is that a good idea? You all with me? Ready to do something you've never done before? Okay. So do you remember at the beginning we talked about full yogic breath where we started breathing here, and then we breathed here, and then we breathed from here. The three of them came together. We're going to divide them up, and we're going to do a little breathing in each section. But we're going to use a particular form of breath. Some of you who've ever taken a yoga class may have already learned this breath. It has a Sanskrit name. It's called Ujjayi, but when we teach it to Westerners, we call it the victory breath. Victory breath is victory over what? Whatever's carrying your mind away so that you don't feel centered, that you're not feeling yourself, right? So I'll take you back to a time when I started my first business. I was the executive vice president of my brother's lawnmower business. We mowed lawns, which means he found the jobs and I pushed the lawnmower. Grew up in upstate New York, and at the end of a very hot day, I knew there was a Coca-Cola waiting for me in the refrigerator. This is a long time ago. And I'd run home and I'd gobble down the Coca-Cola, probably the whole can in about 5 seconds, and I'd make this incredibly satisfying sound. The sound was like, ah. Can you all make that sound? Breathe in through your nose and breathe out that sound. Ah. Easy to do, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate something first, and then I'm going to ask you to do it with me. I'm going to breathe in through the nose. I'm going to make that sound on the exhale. I'm going to keep my mouth open. I'm going to make it on the inhale, like this. Now, some of you, it may seem easy to do this. Some of you might find it a little challenging, but let's do the best we can. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through this back of the throat. And then breathe in through the back of the throat. It may seem a little unnatural at first. And breathe out. And breathe in. Very good. I can hear you from up here. Doing very well. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through the nose. We're going to breathe out with the sound, the throat open and the mouth open. Breathe in with the throat open, the mouth open. Then we're going to make that same sound with the mouth closed. I'll demonstrate. Almost sounds like snoring. Join me when you feel like you know what I'm doing. Can you hear it? It's just breathing through the back of the throat. You want a little crib note if you're not figuring out if you're doing it right? Everybody say, whisper hello to me. Hello. Yeah, you can do that? Now close your mouth and whisper hello again. You see how you do that from the back of the throat? See if you can breathe in and out through the back of the throat. There's something called the vagus nerve inside that's connected to our ability to calm ourselves. And when we breathe through the back of the throat like this, it stimulates the vagus nerve. Okay? So we'll take it through the whole thing, mouth open, mouth closed. And then when we feel like we have a little bit of connection to it, we're going to breathe in each of these places to a certain count. And then we'll go into meditation. Sound like a plan? Okay. So take a breath in. Mouth open. Inhale, mouth open. Mouth closed. Inhale, mouth closed. Exhale. Inhale. Open your eyes. How many people feel like they've getting a little bit of a hang on it? Maybe you're not a Rhodes Scholar in breathing yet, but you're getting it a little bit at a time. Okay. So we're going to put our hands on our navel. And in this first stage, we're just going to focus on the navel going up and down. And we're going to breathe in with this victory breath, in and out at a particular rhythm. I'll lead you. So normal breath in and out, using victory breath from the back of the throat. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2. Breathe in. Hold. If you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Hold. 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 Breathe out. Hold. Last time. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Eyes still closed, but back to normal breathing for a moment. Open your eyes. Everybody doing okay? Some of you could feel a little anxiety coming out. I don't know if anybody feels that way. But sometimes when the oxygen hits the cells and there's some emotion in the cells, it kind of allows it to come out in the breath. So if you're feeling that, it's not a bad thing. It's a healing thing. Okay, second stage, we're going to do it with our hand on our heart. Can we do that? Eyes closed, normal breath in and out. Using this victory breath from the back of the throat. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. 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 Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Last time. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold, 2, and relax. Take a nice transition breath in and out. Before we do our last stage, just kind of check inside, see how you're feeling as opposed to how you were feeling when you walked in tonight. And last one we'll do with our hand on our throat. Can we do that? Normal breath in and out. Using victory breath. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Last one. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. And relax. Keep your eyes closed just for a moment. Feel what's happening deep inside. Something deeper than what's happened to you, what you've gone through, what will happen to you in the future. The presence of God in the deepest part of ourselves is always there. We just need to take time and put a little attention. And we'll find ourselves there in no time.
I just want to invite you to sort of remain in that space inside with your breath. And from this space deep within, we'll do a meditation. It'll be an opportunity to connect with those parts of your inner world that you may be carrying in with you here this evening. So I invite you just to stay with your breath and know that we're not seeking to change or fix anything right now. Nor will we even try to hold on to this experience as if we could control it. It's simply a time to be present inside to yourself. And we'll begin by remembering the words of Meister Eckhart, who said, God only asks that you get out of God's way and let God be God in you. So stay with your breath. And I'd like you to imagine inside a conference room. If you like, you can just kind of keeping your eyes closed. Imagine this conference room, large table, many chairs around that table. And what we're going to do is just one by one, invite the different parts of you that you bring here this evening to join around the table. So for example, you might notice an anxious part that feels unsettled, worrying about what to do next and if you'll be okay. Notice where you feel it in your body. Acknowledge it. Recognizing that it's not the totality of who you are. It's just a part. And as all parts are, an important one. Welcome it. Invite it to have a seat around the conference table. As it takes a seat, just reconnect with your breath and notice what shows up next. Perhaps it's a hold it all together part, one that wants to corral the feelings, including that one of anxiety, because you have so much to do. Notice where you feel it in your body. Acknowledge this part and welcome it, inviting it to have a seat around the table. Just continue with this process, noticing what part shows up next and where you feel it in your body. There's no right or wrong thing that can happen right now. Just acknowledge the part that shows up, welcome it, invite it to have a seat around the table. Staying with your breath as you continue with this process, you may notice you have a frantic part that wants to solve the problems, a discouraged part that feels powerless, a part that's angry because it's just so unfair or is upset with how everything has been handled, an analytical part that thinks about politics and industrialism in the environment, a part carrying survivor guilt, an annoyed part that dislikes how others are reacting, a sad part feeling weighed down by the grief and heaviness of knowing there's so much loss. A doubting part that questions why God has allowed this to happen. Or a part that just wants to go have a drink and forget about all of it. Whatever parts are showing up within you right now, welcome them. Just notice them in your body and invite them to have a seat around the table. Remaining connected with your breath. Look around the entire table. You notice some parts may feel dominant or strong, others weak or less honored. Notice how you feel toward them. If it is anything other than curiosity or compassion, it just means that another part has spoken up, either one that's already there around the table or a new one coming in. Either way, just notice and welcome it. Invite that breath deep into your abdomen and see if you can cultivate any curiosity or compassion for your parts. Let them know, I need all of you. Continue to breathe, and if this is a challenge, or even if it's not, invite Jesus into the conference room. Just feel his presence. And notice how he is with all of your parts. Notice what he says or doesn't say, what he does or doesn't do. notice how those parts respond to him. You might check if any of them have anything they would like to say, do, or hand over to him. Take this time to be with Jesus, remaining open, curious, and compassionate to your experience. Continue with your breathing. Just invite you to remain quiet for a moment and continue to receive from Jesus whatever he offers you. As we begin to conclude this time, breathe and extend your gratitude toward each and every part that has shown up within you, to Jesus for his presence. Then as you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring yourself back into this space here that we're sharing together this evening. And as you're coming out of that exercise, just like to invite you to take the next couple of moments just to turn to the person or persons near you, share a little about your experience, anything that's happened here this evening. Then just in a few moments, we'll come back as a large group, any discussion or any questions that you might have for all of us. So take a couple minutes now just to talk to your neighbors. We're going to come back as a large group for a few moments. And all three of us will be up here. We'd love to just hear any thoughts. And then afterwards, just know we've got some refreshments out in the DeBall Center. So some more time to just kind of connect and chat with one another. But we'd love to just hear if you have any either comments or questions for any of us. Any just thoughts.